has been the activity by domestic HNI and retail investors in the month of April? What should they do now? And for those who have been sitting on the cash, waiting for perhaps better decline or better entry points, should they wait or it's time to jump in? Feroze Azeez joins us, Deputy CEO with Anand Rathi Wealth Management. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. It's remarkable, Feroze bhai, that in the month of April, when we had market which was hit because of volatility, and there was genuine concerns which were centered around tariff wars, the SIP number has been extraordinarily strong.
Yes, Nikunj sir, like you rightly pointed out, the SIP numbers are very, very strong. And they've been continuing to be that way. I think the Indian retail has understood mutual funds as a vehicle which can give them long-term structural savings. Like quite a few people used to do unstructured savings in India, like the chit funds and all those kind of investments. So structured they're no more seeing it as an investment vehicle, they're seeing it as a saving vehicle. I think that mind shift change has happened in retail but not in HNI. Nikunj sir, if you take a note, what is happening is HNI is behaving far more emotionally than a retail. See, last month if you see the numbers of April, 26,600 came from SIP. But HNI or lump sum was lump sum 2,400 crore negative. So last month was a screaming buy from a retail standpoint, but HNI was a negative 2,600 crores. I'm assuming lump sum comes from HNI. In months like September, October, HNI was positive 30,000 crores plus SIP number. So HNI is using it as an investment vehicle, retail is using it as a savings vehicle. This mind shift change will tell us how they will become agnostic to market movement. Second, I think, like you said, there was a Trump war, to everyone's surprise, markets don't correct. And HNIs, I keep telling them, and they are surprised every time the market bounces back. Actually, one thing I realized when Satyam had happened, I did a study and tested Satyam, way
2009.
back. 2009, January first week. Something so trivial, 17th or 16th largest company in India is saying we fudged FD receipts. You know how down was market that day? 1%. I was perplexed.
It was called as the Enron moment of India, I still remember.
Yeah, and on that day, markets fell only 1%. Then I started analyzing, if I was an FII sitting somewhere in the US, I would say, India pe to vishwas hi ut gaya yaar.
Yeah.
Nifty or Sensex की company अगर ऐसी छोटी trivial fraud कर सकती है, तो सबसे that day it fell 1%, and then I analyzed it's not the news, it is what happened preceding the news decides the power of the news. Because Nifty had fallen, Sensex had fallen from 18,000 to 10,700 because of global financial crisis. If the same news would have come about 4 months back, 5 months back, it had the power to bring down Sensex to a couple of negative circuit limits. The reason why we are not falling is because we've already returned 4 lakh crores to to FIIs on the pretext of valuation. अगर ये valuation के बहाने से अगर हमने ना किया होता और ये war अगर September में हुई थी तो 5-7% falls on the day of the wall breakout. So I think that's why HNI is always getting surprised. Why is markets not correcting when these two powerful newses ideally should bring it down? It's because we have done that on the pretext of valuation.
But what is the screen telling you right now, Feroze? Is there still a lot of uncertainty in the market? Is money still moving towards safer havens like large caps? Or do you think flexi caps, small, mid caps is also finding the money back? Because the concern started with the bubble in the small and mid caps when it came to valuations.
Yes, so if you look at, like Aisha, you rightly mentioned, the bubble started to kind of burst in January. So it held up a year and a half more than what
Even
people
October,
thought.
I would say, in small and mid caps.
Correct. And then the carnage started in January. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. There were signs of some pockets falling reasonably. Now, if you look at the small cap space, if you look at 250 stocks of the NSE small cap index, which according to me should be the index everyone should track, every other index is irrelevant. Because this is what I'm making a statement on the basis of if 30 lakh crores of mutual fund industry is supposed to look at this 250 stocks, why would I look at an NSE small cap 100? Who's tracking it? What inflows are there? No mutual fund managers. Tier 2 is NSE small cap 250. In fact, 82% of small cap funds tier 2 benchmark is Nifty. Can you believe it? Okay, so and people are tracking NSE small cap 100. मैंने कहा उसको track कौन कर रहा है भाई? You are not the only investor. So coming back to your point, I did a study of 250 stocks, NSE small cap 250, analyzed what percentage of stocks were positive on the worst 10 days of the last 1 year, and try and see intersection between those stocks. On a bad day, like the worst stock for NSE small cap 250 over the last calendar year was a minus 7.5% on that day. On that day, there were almost about 7% of the stocks positive. Those are stocks which are business owned rather than price owned. So in bad markets, if you wish to buy NSE or the small cap stocks, you have to buy stocks which are not market dependent. So, and if you see in those 10 days, there are about 3 stocks which had an intersection 4 days out of the 10 days. इसका ये मायने है कि जिस दिन मार्केट गिरती है, अगर उसका शेयर होल्डर नहीं बेचता है तो वो धंधा खरीद रहा है, ना कि दाम. अच्छी मार्केट में दाम खरीदें, बुरी मार्केट में बिजनेस खरीदें. So this is what hypothesis which I've back tested and extrapolated on a couple of treasuries has worked well. That should be the strategy in my opinion when it comes to.
So which is a good dhanda and which is a good banda now to bet on?
Banda to I know is sitting in front of me. Nikunj Saab is the banda to bet on.
I'm not listed.
You don't have to be listed. You analyze listed businesses. So if you can have an opinion. You have an opinion on 2,000 stocks, right? So I would rather have a good guy looking at all the businesses than one. So coming back to my mind, there is kind of an equilibrium between large cap, mid cap and small cap. Okay, और कौन सा धंधा खरीदना है अगर आपको आपके पोर्टफोलियो में कोई स्टॉक गिरा हुआ है तो लोग ऊपरा ऊपरी और एवरेज करने लग जाते हैं. तो अब मैं एक स्टॉक एनालाइज कर रहा था. एक भाई साहब के पास 80 करोड़ है मेरे क्लाइंट के पास. उन्होंने कहा इसको बता कि यार ये बाउंस बैक करेगा कि नहीं, 30% गिर रखा है, अच्छा बड़ा स्टॉक है.
80 crores in one stock.
One stock, yeah, because there were some promoter friendships and they were bought at different points in
He
time.
deals with HNIs, Aisha.
Ultra. Yeah. It's not HNIs.
No, this is an aberration. Okay, this is an aberration. Okay, so those are the people you meet to feel
So
poor.
which is this stock? Let's get back to it.
So I was analyzing this stock because we had to. So will it bounce back or not? Completely depends on किसने हाथ बदला. So that stock from 21% of FII ownership went down to 17. And the same quarter, domestic institutions went up from 18 to 22. That means हाथ बदले हैं between FII and domestic. If any of your stock which has got corrected and the ownership has changed from insti to insti, that has a larger possibility of a bounce back and you don't have to worry too much. अगर इंस्टी से रिटेल के हाथ में गया है तो आपको थोड़ा ज़्यादा घबराने की ज़रूरत है. Those are the stocks you clean from your portfolio. You can't just say it's fallen 30%, it is at the worst moving averages, so I'm going to quit it. You have to see who changed ownership over the last few months, and that will help you decide and cleanse your direct equity portfolio. So I'm not qualified to give you stock names, but if you ask which are the businesses you bet on and average out, are those businesses which fell on the pretext of ownership from insti to insti rather than insti to retail. Retail to insti is a very good buy sign. If retail has reduced and FIIs and DIs have bought, that's a stock which you would hold or add on to.
But Feroze, also help us understand that which schemes are getting the most of the interest right now, because the SMID schemes have seen an inflow on a month-on-month basis. The inflows have been quite stable, and apart from ELSS, all the schemes have seen an inflow. Where is the money finding its way now?
The money is finding its way in flexi caps, even in small caps. See, as long as if there is 24,200 crores which has come, if I see it as a percentage of small cap, like 4,000 crores came into small cap. Somebody would say, why is 4,000 crores still coming? It's coming because it's still 20% or 18% of the overall portfolio, which is not a lopsided allocation. So I personally think, the market has understood that there is a kind of an equilibrium, there is an attractiveness to small caps as well. Like today you would see small caps outperform large caps on a day like this is difficult in a bad market. So I think जो भी small cap में बिकना था, there are 3 kinds of FIIs. FIIs who are hedge funds, FIIs who invest in index for their own monies, and there is one FII which is an index fund investor, like the Vanguards of the world. Vanguards of the world who follow FTSE have not sold India at all. If you look at their ownerships in their fact sheets in the UK, they have not sold. Only person who has sold is the short-term hedge funds and special situation guys. So I think जिसने बेचना था बेच चुके हैं FII की कैटेगरी में. I think that's why I would say small cap funds are getting interest, and rightly so.
You know, the general narrative was go for large cap. Small caps were expensive. The kind of returns what we've seen between 2021 and 24, that is unlikely to repeat. There's a very famous tagline which started everywhere. Risk reward ratio favorable nahi hai.
Correct.
But flows are still there in small and mid cap stocks. Why, and what does that demonstrate about the investor psychology?
I think investor ये समझ गया है कि भाई 250 स्टॉकों का one statement is so ridiculous to make. Risk reward depends on what portfolio you own.
There are some fund managers who said, and I'm without getting into names, they've gone on record and they've said time to cancel your small cap SIPs. हैं, मतलब मैं नाम नहीं बता रहा हूँ.
That was in October, November,
now.
peak of the
Now.
panic.
now. I mean, we're forgetting that very famous controversy which started at one
No,
of
I know
those-
exactly who
Yeah.
you're talking about, but
I think that was in
I think
early.
it was a while back.
Maybe.
No, but maybe a quarter
Okay,
back.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think,
quarter back.
yeah, it was in January
Yeah, that's what I
when
remember.
this whole debate.
Yeah,
See, if you're investing in a volatile asset in an SIP, if you have to start managing SIPs, then it is counterintuitive to what is the narrative which we have been giving as a industry and stakeholders to retail and confusing them. So coming back, I personally think small cap fundon mein, agar 40 small cap funds hain, there are 40 of them, the dispersion of their portfolios is so vast. So if like there are two funds which are there in our small cap model portfolio, Invesco's Tahir Badshah's fund and HDFC small cap. Both have beaten Nifty for the last financial year. Now if I buy a small cap managed by a CIO, I'm getting the best guy in that company to manage a small cap. So then there is small cap which is risky, but I'm getting the best resource of that company to manage my fund. So both these are managed by CIOs of those respective. So I would always urge your viewer to not go by narratives when there is dispersion in an asset class. If large cap में आप कुछ भी बोल लो, 10 stock Nifty के 65%, 66% weight है. So to answer your pointed question, Nikunj sir, I think small cap में बहुत opportunity है. हमेशा रहती है. अब fund manager के निर्भर करता है. I spoke to a fund manager. He says when there's opportunity, I have 80 stocks. When there's no opportunity, I have 30 stocks in small cap. How can there be no 30 stocks which have got beaten down at a point in time, which has good businesses to own from long term? Otherwise, the fund manager telling you long term is false. You may not own 80%, 80 stocks, but you would still say 30% of the businesses are long term good businesses. So I think opportunity is there. It's about the diversity of the opportunity had reduced, now it's expanded.
So
back.
before we wrap, how many years you've been tracking the markets?
So I started, I went bankrupt twice because of derivatives. So I started tracking the cash markets a lot more into from 2007, 8.
Yeah, it is such a great realization that you've traded and you've learned and now you're talking about SIP. So just term of understanding and approach, which is the point I just wanted to bring out, that you've really, there's no harm in trading or understanding what works for you. I mean, if trading
why
doesn't
did you
work,
learn from the lessons?
exactly. And
I
I mean,
don't
and
want
for
to
a
make
fact
the
that
same,
for you to trade, almost hit a bankruptcy level, come back and making others rich, is quite extraordinary. पर एक चीज बताइए, इधर इधर देखें, उधर देखें, एक भी सफेद बाल नहीं है, ये कैसे है यार?
तो L'Oreal का कमाल है.
Trading is stress and investing is no stress, maybe that way.
नहीं, but
SIPs are the way to go. Stress free.
निकुंज सर जब रैप ऑन द नकल्स लगता है ना, तब आदमी सीखता है.
तो एक भी सफेद बाल नहीं है यार.
Some gentleman, I don't want to quote, but yeah, it's not my statement. He says, अगर आराम से पैसा बनाना है तो 15 साल में बनाओगे, जल्दी में बनाना है तो 25 साल में बनाओगे. So जल्दी में बनाने जाते हो आप, फिर जूते खाते हो, फिर रियलाइजेशन होती है, फिर आप दूसरों को बताते हो यार हड़बड़ाहट में मत रहो. There is a reason why a 90-year-old man does his AGM and 50,000 people come to hear about long-term investing. It's the same guy whom I was hearing over the weekend and it was making so much sense.
Yeah.
So
What a lovely interaction. Thank you very much. पर इसका अंदर की बात तो बताइए. I mean, it's what?
Later
Not
on.
even later on. Boy talk later on.
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nikunj sir.